Hey guys, VaulSC here, hope that you're doing well. Going to take a look at a game of Conquest, the last argument of kings between the 100 Kingdoms and Wadroon. This was a fun one, mostly just really happy with the way that my photos are turning out for these games with the new camera and everything. Just getting better and better at the photography side of things, so if anything, just a great opportunity for you to take a look at some of the work that I've been doing on that. We do have a update coming for 100 Kingdoms pretty soon, so this may well be probably the second to last game with the current rules, given that I've got another game coming up on Thursday. Hopefully give a chance to show that to you as well when the time comes. But let's take a look at it. 100 Kingdoms versus Wadroon up against my local buddy Hayden. And I think we'll just go straight to the army lists, in fact. This is a list that I've been running a bit lately, just sort of for the fun of it, where essentially what you've got is the Priory commander with the big brick of Crimson Tower Knights. It's just a really fun regiment to run, and it looks really cool. And once they got rid of the mastery that required you to have long lineage in order to take heirlooms, once they got rid of that, this became slightly more viable with the points reduction. So Olefant's Roar just turns this unit into a really fun, 4s or less on the impact hits kind of thing when you charge. So you've got, 20 dice hitting on 4s or less with Brutal 2 and Terrifying 1. It's just a really cool thing to have if your opponent has included something in their army which is tough. Unfortunately, the meta these days really is a lot of very small regiments, multiple small unit kind of thing without, committing too much of your points to one part of the battlefield. So this kind of really runs against that, and is primarily good at other things that have also taken a big hefty unit that you want to target, but it's still fun. I don't think this is the optimal way to play 100 Kingdoms, and probably won't be after the patch, but it's cool. And obviously Order the Ashen Dawn in there as well. Imperial Officer with Armor of Dominion and the 6 Gilded Legion. That's all the models I have for. I'd love to run the regiment of like 8 or 9 one day, but don't have the miniatures for it. Armor of Dominion, I think this is the one time that you can really take that item, because the Gilded Legion are going to Bastion up to Defense 4, and they've got the pike formation to stop you from getting wiped out by a lot of charges, and you're in there for the long haul, which is when Armor of Dominion really helps against a lot of the stuff in the game that has Clash 2 and even Smite nowadays. So there is that, and of course the trusty Chapter Mage with Kiss Farewell, School of Fire, and Focused. That combo is just, it's a tale as old as time now. We've all used it. And yeah, I feel like this kind of list might be going away a little bit after the new patch. We'll see. I did have a look at the happy hour, but I can't really draw any conclusions about what the lists in the meta are going to look like from that. My opponent really just taking the opportunity to play the models that he's working on in terms of painting at the moment. So Chief on foot as the Warlord, love that. Supremacy Concentrated Assault is very, very good, because it means that all of your tribes on the battlefield get your flurry. Well, all the veterans get flurry. Crushing Force is the impact one, so all tribes on the battlefield get that, and all tribes on the battlefield get Vanguard, which is so good. Trying out Death, mainly so you can use Cure. That's the Deadly Blade, so the veterans are going to hit pretty hard with that. Big block of Braves, without a character, mind you. Not often you see them there without the character. Thunder Riders. These guys are at their best really with a Thunder Chieftain, but you can include them with the Foot Chiefs, so kind of fun to see them there. And Cult of Death will protect them a little bit, not all that much. Tontorr, of course. I believe that with the current chanting rules, he does get the ability to chant for death if he wants to, but quite a lot of the time you're going to be using the new Windlord ability. Hayden's actually painting up a Windlord as we speak, so that'll be fun to see that on the battlefield. The Foot Predator is kind of cool. His hunters here are speakers. They don't really mesh well with the chief's ability. I really prefer the slingers in this kind of setup, just because slingers are tribes, therefore they get the vanguard, so they're really the better choice, but hunters are still kind of cool because they have deadly shot and armor piercing, with which the slingers don't. And Hunting Pack, Raptor Riders, Apex Predator, you gotta love them. So moving on to the mission, the scenario here, we've got Divide and Conquer, which is a classic Conquest mission where the 2 center circles, the objectives are neutrals, so either player can score from them, and then the colored ones closer to your side are being defended by you. You can't just set up camp there and score points. You've got to go to the ones being defended by your opponent on the other side of the table. So if you're the red player, you go after the blue ones and vice versa, and there's a 3-point little objective marker to destroy, again, on your opponent's side of the battlefield. You can't kill the one closest to you. So 2 points for each zone, 2 if you've got 3 or more. That'd be like 2 middle ones and 1 side one, for example, or both of the end ones and 1 of the middle ones. And then a 1 VP if you've got more zones than your opponent, 2 for each Warlord. And it says this may not be scored more than once per game. Thank you for that. 100 Kingdoms don't yield an extra 2 points for killing both Warlords, for example. So let's take a look at the picks. We've got them here. So let's find a good place for the camera to sit, or the webcam. You've got the central zones here, and then you've got the side ones back here. And I'll be deploying on this side here with 100 Kingdoms. These are the objectives that are destroyable, and then of course we've got several forests throughout the table. There are some impassable buildings here and here, and then some large hills, I should say, size 2 hills. That's the way we're doing it. So I only have 2 light regiments. That is the Mercenary Crossbows, and my opponent has just the Hunting Pack, and the Raptor Riders for some reason doesn't roll enough to bring the Raptor Riders on this turn, I believe. So we've just got the Mercenaries setting up on a hill opposite the, well, not opposite the Raptor, not opposite the Hunting Pack. We're staying away from them this game. So you can see there, actually, we do have the Raptor Riders coming on turn 1, my bad. They have been stripped of paint, and they will be repainted pretty soon. So what I've done is I've tried to stay away from the Hunting Pack. They're very dangerous early on. Maybe I can actually blitz them with the Mage coming on turn 2 with the Fireball. That is sort of like the plan, because they aren't very good against resolve checks. So that's how I'm going to think about dealing with them, and just staying at a range from those Raptor Riders where if they come towards me, I'll at least have 1 unit of crossbows sort of taking the hit, and the other one nearby can punish that position by shooting in a point-blank range and hopefully dealing with the raptors that way. So opposite the crossbows on the hill, we have the Hunters and the Predator. These guys aren't massively ranged, and they don't have quite the threat that the Slingers do, so hopefully I'll be able to get a couple of shots off on before they fire back at me. I'll just move this thing so you can see that the crossbows are further up ahead there. All right, where do we get to? Turn 2. So I will bring on the the men-at-arms as the first regiment. They'll be containing the chapter mage. So the thought is to potentially move on the board, then shoot the fireball at something which has come onto my side of the battlefield. Just a good way of punishing your opponent from coming too close to your board edge that early in the game. We've got a unit of Hunter Cadre. They are mediums. They also have flank, which is awesome, to go up and score with Vanguard and flank. Really good combination. And then the mercenaries act last, because they're likely to have things move into their range rather than, them have to activate and fire at nothing, essentially. I do have a lot of heavies in this list. We've got the Ashen Dawn, we've got the Crimson Tower Knights, Steel Legion, Gilded Legion. It's a very heavy regiment oriented list, unfortunately. So my opponent, acting first with his Raptor Riders, they are marching forward. They get a free shot nowadays. They don't have to use an action to do the shooting. So they're just plugging away at the crossbows here with their fairly limited range and getting a little bit of damage done. We then have the men-at-arms moving in behind that unit of crossbows. You can see that they've been reduced to just 2 stands there, thanks to some very good shooting from the Raptor Riders. So this puts the Mage in a position where she could fireball the Raptors, which she does from here, and does a bit of damage to them with the fire dart. Then we have the Hunters moving around here, just taking up a little bit of cover next to the house there. Not that the house gives them cover, but does protect them a little bit from line of sight, potentially from that Mage, and sets up really for shooting at the crossbows, although they're activating a little bit too early here. They are not within threat range of the crossbows, even with a move shoot, but they have moved forward regardless, which will give me potentially an opportunity to shoot them first, which is useful. I then have the Hunter Cadre, which do a double march over here towards the Hunters. I feel like these guys will be good against the Hunters because they've got a very long range of 18 inches, and the AP1 will help a little bit. Also, they have Evasion 2 against the Hunters' shots, which have AP, so I'm kind of negating that a little bit. And if he does bring one of his monsters on this side of the table, I should be able to shoot at them fairly well with the Hunter Cadre that way also. So here we have the Chief with his 5 veterans. These guys have Vanguard. They march all the way up here behind the Raptor Riders, and they're going to be going for that central objective further ahead there, as you can see. Love me some veterans. I play them often when I use Wadroon on Tabletop Simulator, as you guys probably know. Over here, we have some crossbows shooting back at the Raptor Riders, who have also been reduced down to 2 stands now with a combination of the fire dart and the crossbow bolts here. And then on the hill, we have the crossbows firing at the Hunters, doing a little bit of damage to them, starting things off early with a bit of killing, and hopefully activating them very early next turn to shoot before I get shot at. So here's a bit of an overview of the table after 2 turns. We have the Hunting Pack all the way around the right-hand side flank. Because I have not countered them with a Mage, there's absolutely no space in front of them, which does mean they could potentially wrap around, pivot around to the back of my line there. But the thing is, I will always have more stuff to bring on and some heavy units which might be able to just steamroll them. But I'm starting to feel a little bit anxious about those hunting packs, because normally you'd want something in the early game to kind of jump on them rather than leaving them to continually increase their position and just get into a better and better spot. So, turn 3 now, we're going to go with the Mage first because she just has to fire dart those Raptor Riders before they charge the Mercenary Crossbows. Then we have both Mercenary Crossbow units because they're about to get obliterated by the Raptors and the Hunters, so I want to try and get some value out of them first. Then we have the Hunter Cadre to shoot at his Hunters, and then everything else is just the heavies, and they're really going to be jockeying for better positions and trying to come on after my opponent has deployed new things, right? So, opponent wins the roll. So the Raptor Riders, they're charging straight into the Mercenary Crossbowmen and predictably wiping them off the face of the earth because they're very, very good against Mercenary Crossbowmen, as you can imagine. And the Mage then activates and blasts them with the Firebolt, not completely killing them, but we will be able to charge them with the Men-at-Arms if needed. Over here, opponent moves onto the objective zone with the War Chief here, the Chieftain, the Warlord, and this is good for him because he's getting onto the objectives first. He'll actually generate a scoring lead. He still has his hunting pack to wrap around there. The Raptor Riders have effectively traded for a unit of Mercenary Crossbowmen, which is not the best trade, but at least they haven't just been completely obliterated. And things are actually kind of looking good for my opponent, which is not really what I wanted to see, but hopefully we can wrangle things into a better position later. Over here, my Mercenary Crossbowmen firing at his hunters is what they're called. Everything has the word hunting in its name these days, so it does some damage. We then have the Hunters firing back at me, and these guys have been reduced to just 2 stands, but they have the very powerful Predator with them, so of course firing a hail of death back at me, as was predicted. Hunter Cadre doing very well here. Everything hunts, you see. So they fire off with their Volley 2 and the Barrage 3, and unfortunately no rerolls against them because they're not fiends, but doing a fair bit of damage regardless. And then we have the Braves showing up. These Braves look excellent. Don't they look great? They're painted so extremely well, and I love these sculpts, especially that guy on the left with his like Darth Vader mask kind of thing. He looks brilliant. Very warped spear, but that sort of adds to the fun of it. And they're in a large pack of 6. Over here, the hunting pack moving to my side of the table. Now, this zone can't be captured by light regiments, so he's not going to score any points from it, but he's getting even closer to my side of the board, and these guys have liquid formation, so if I bring on a heavy unit here, then if he wins the roll for next turn, he can just charge it straight away, and if I don't position correctly, he might get a flank charge, and that would just be disastrous, so these guys starting to become a problem. On the extreme opposite side of the battlefield, we have the Steel Legion. These guys are using Vanguard from the Imperial officer. Don't they look great? They look really cool. They're just marching up to this forest here. They don't want to take much flak there from the Hunters or anything else that might come their way, but they want to sort of just mosey on around the left-hand side of the battlefield and aim for... I'll pointed out to you. So this is a neutral zone which both sides can capture. This is a friendly zone which I need to protect, but this zone beyond the trees there is the one that these guys want to go for. So they're going to initially camp out in the trees, and then we're going to wait a bit to see what stuff my opponent ends up deploying, and if he doesn't deploy anything on that side, then they've got a free roll over to the objective, but surely he's going to be bringing in the Tontorr, Apex Predator, or the Thunder Riders opposite these guys, and the trees will be a little bit of cover against the impact hits that all of those units can obviously do, so that's why they're here. Men-at-Arms charging the Raptor Rider or the Arena guy and just wiping him out, so that's that. And then we have the glorious Gilded Legion, double marching up the field, or triple marching, I should say, with Vanguard from the Imperial officer, and they are just camping on the hill right behind those Mercenary Crossbowmen. Because of the Imperial officer's draw event, they will have double time, which will allow them to cross over top of the mercenaries quite easily. Of course, we are expecting the mercenaries to be shot at quite badly by the hunters pretty soon. Either way, these guys are happy with their central position. They have the option to go right, which will take them to the combat with the chief and the veterans, or they can go left, which is the big block of Braves. Either way, they're going to need to be really pulling some weight in the central combat of the battlefield, and we'll have a look at how they perform very soon. Here is an overview of that, so you can sort of see what I mean by the pikes here being able to go left or right to either of those main conflicts, because the veterans are just scoring 2 points a turn, and there's no way that the men-at-arms are going to kick them off that zone. Over here, though, he's only deployed the Braves and the Hunters, which surely the Pikes and the Hunter Cadre can deal with, but we're expecting some sort of heavy regiment to show up and cause me a problem there. So just trying to really look out for his deployments. He's rolled very poorly on his reinforcement rolls for the reinforcements of his heavies, so a lot of them are showing up turn 4, unfortunately. So this is a turn 4 now. We have the Mage going first, and then the Hunter Cadre, then the Mercenaries. Just trying to just get off some volleys and some range blasts first, and then we're going last with the really important stuff, because we need to see where on the battlefield the enemy has deployed their regiments before we bring ours on here. So side-on view, you can see the Steel Legion at the bottom, right through the side view of the table, very blurry though. Over here, the Mage going first, just plonking off a shot at the veterans to start us off. And then we have the Hunters going up against, I believe, the Crossbows or one of these two regiments, and trying to put in a bit of damage. The Hunter Cadre are firing back at them and doing a little bit of damage, hoping to really minimize their threat once the Pikes really commit. We don't really want to be in a position where the Gilded Legion are fighting the Braves only for the Predator to be shooting point-blank range, effective range, right next to them, you know. So over here, we have the veterans just reposing a bit, and the men-at-arms pulling back a little bit. I am positioning them in such a way that the Mage can shoot the veterans every turn if she needs to. Won't be inflicting very much damage to them, but if he decides to just claim this unit and wipe them out, he'll have to leave the zone to do so, and then I can possibly surround him with Ashen Dawn and Crimson Towers, etc., and he'll need to bring in a strong unit like the Tontorr, the Thunder Riders over there to take that zone, and if I can lock him into a late game position where he's forced to camp a zone for just scoring with one of his most powerful combat units, then I can hopefully win elsewhere by surrounding his troops with my main lot of stuff further afield, you know. Look at these beautiful Thunder Riders. They really pop, of course. Everything's been edited in Lightroom, etc. But the painting on this regiment is just gorgeous, and the turquoise just really blows up on your screen. Love this regiment. So these guys are going to sneak around the left-hand flank, and unlike the hunting pack there, they can score. So just to clarify that for those who are unaware, there is a zone in the middle which is a neutral zone. The veterans are currently camping that beyond the trees there. This can't be scored by light regiments, but it can be scored by heavy regiments. So if he brings the Thunder Riders around there, that might be the only thing they do all game, but they'll get free points for the rest of the game if they do that. And this is the one that I'd have to capture, and I'm nowhere near that objective. And it obviously has it so that these hunting pack can just come around here and flank my Mage potentially, which would deal with them very easily, I must add. The Tontorr moving in behind the veterans, and I think his idea here is that the veterans now could freely move off that zone if they want to, and the Tontorr can camp in the middle, so that will allow him to put a bit more pressure onto me. Now the Mage moving back, we've got a double move here, and this is the mistake here for me. This is the problem. What I really should have done is I should have just reformed and pivoted a little bit. Because my flank is right there, and the hunting pack I've got a turn to move around here. If he wins the roll, he can just charge directly into the flank here, which wipes this unit out, and then he can keep on going around this side to get in the way of my heavy units, which are going to be coming on the battlefield. Really dangerous. Over here, the Braves moving on to the other neutral objective. He's now going to be able to double score unless I move something in range, but of course I do have a free turn there with the pikes in the background. He has murdered my Mercenary Crossbowmen on the hill with his hunters, so the coast is clear to march on now. The Steel Legion still just hanging out in the forest here. We don't really want to move anywhere. We again want to wait and see where that final thing is going to be deployed. He's got his T-Rex. That's the one thing that's left to come on the battlefield, and we're expecting it to come in opposite these guys. And once it does, I'll probably want to back off a bit and just lure the Apex Predator into the forest where it's likely to do a little bit less damage, giving me an opportunity to maybe attack back with some big long swords and soften it up a bit. And we'll also have the Hunter Cadre nearby to shoot at it with, of course, their Fiend Hunter crossbows. So predictably, here it is, the Apex Predator defending that far zone there from my Steel Legion, and I think this is a solid play. It's just that with just this one monster, it's kind of hard to kill a lot of regiments straight through the front. Big monsters like this are good at flanking things and just bullying weaker units, but the Steel Legion might hold it up for a bit, and of course I do have another big regiment of knights coming its way as well. Look at that photo there. Hayden just does such a great job with colors, man. He's just obviously gone over it with a really strong purple, like a really good looking purple, and highlighted it up to a very bright orange, and then of course contrasted that with the exact opposite on the color wheel. All of you guys should know about if you're into painting. Color wheel, very important concept. You want to go to the opposite end of the color wheel for your other colors. Really makes it contrast and pop, and he's even got the dusky sort of brown rustic kind of tones in there to keep it cool and get added even more contrast, which I love. So I've decided to position the Knights of the Ashen Dawn here. This is a bit of a risky play for me, and I did explain this to my opponent at the time. If he chooses to move his veterans here, I will have no space to move the Ashen Dawn past that zone. I decided to let that happen in the end, because if he does that, he's moving off the objective, and he's just got his Tontorr camping there, and we'll both be stuck for a while. And I can potentially move this unit sideways over a couple of turns once the pikes move out of the way. But if he doesn't make that play, then of course I can move across the objective and fight him front on. And I think that the Ashen Dawn will do quite well against the veterans, because at Cleave 1, they'll chop them down to Defense 2, essentially, and the veterans don't really have a lot in the way of cleaves, so the Ashen Dawn will survive quite a long time against them. And although he's using Deadly Blades as an upgrade from the Chieftain, I'll typically be re-rolling any failed armor saves with Blessed, which means that I'm not going to roll very many sixes to fail, so it shouldn't really affect the Ashen Dawn that heavily. So that's the strategy here. So here is the play, the little dinos marching around here, and again, if he wins the roll, he's going to be able to charge that regiment there, completely kill it for free. That's the Mage dead and the Men-at-Arms dead, and he'll then be able to go after the Ashen Dawn. If this unit attacks the regiment of Ashen Dawn in the flank, even though the Ashen Dawn are one of the most powerful regiments in the game, they're still going to struggle against this little unit, because that's going to be a lot of hits, and even at Defense 4, they are going to fail some rolls even with Blessed, and even with Resolve 5, they're going to have to re-roll all the successes, so it's actually going to be quite painful in that regard. And if he gets the veterans to fight the Ashen Dawn at the same time, or if he comes into the rear and sandwiches me between the veterans and the hunting pack, then the Ashen Dawn can only use the Blessed against one target, and they will get destroyed. So this is a real problem, and I realized it at the time. So speaking of problems, though, this is the mega unit, the Lance bus of Crimson Tower Knights. Don't they look grand? And that's them there. They're marching in behind the Hunter Cadre, and they're going to be going for, what are they whatever they can, really. Probably the Apex Predator, and they just want to mow things down and march across the battlefield. We're still only on, like, turn 4 at this point. The Gilded Legion then marching up, and in fact triple marching directly in front of the Braves. Now note that they're not in contact with the Braves. I decided to march to around about like 1.5 inches away. Reason being that I'll have 4 stands on the zone to his 2, which means that I'll score. And because there's no difference between me marching right in front of him and contacting him for the purpose of doing damage to him, it means in the next turn that if he decides to charge, he won't get any impacts. Not that he could impact anyway, but he won't get any inspired. And if I start the turn in contact with him, then he will be able to use inspired. So that's the difference there. So that's why they want to do that. And hopefully we can win the roll and gain some Bastion, of course. So another close-up look at the beautiful Gilded Legion, obviously represented there by Household Guard, but same thing. So, the order of cards this turn is important. The Men-at-Arms have to go first, and the reason why is that if they don't turn around, they're going to get hit in the flank by those opportunist hunting pack little dinos, and for the reasons I explained earlier, I don't want them to get wiped out, because then my Ashen Dawn are going to be in a lot of trouble. So Ashen Dawn are going to go absolutely last, but we're going to go with the Men-at-Arms and the Mage first to try and kill those little dinos, and then we're going to go into other things like the Gilded Legion and the Steel Legion, etc., etc., etc. Here's the battlefield. So let's just talk about a few things here. If he uses his Apex Predator to directly charge the Steel Legion, yes, he will eat them up quite badly. The Forest will block the impact hits, but the main thing is that this unit of Crimson Tower Knights will be able to march forward with their first action, charge them in the flank with their second action. They can bypass the Forest that way, and the Apex Predator will be one-shot 100% of the time because of how much damage this unit does with Olefant's Roar. In the middle, we can pretty much leave this one because even if he attacks me direct with the Braves, he's not going to do very much damage. The Hunters are going to be quite painful if I don't have Bastion up. But I think given that he's deployed everything now, I can afford to take a few hits here. I've also got this unit here to shoot at the Apex if needed, but honestly, I don't think that's going to be needed. They just really need to be able to sort of hang out and fire at the Braves. Over here, we just kind of want to stalemate things a little bit. What we want to do is just crush everything on the left-hand side of the battlefield and reduce them to just having a couple of units to score over here. But the problem is that if he charges this regiment with the hunting pack, that is going to be disastrous. The Thunder Riders are about to come over here and start scoring. The Tontorr can pick up the scoring on that zone, and these guys can move up if they want to, but they will be fighting the Ashen Dawn. The thing is, they'll be able to beat the Ashen Dawn if the hunting pack come into the Men-at-Arms over here. All right, so we do fortunately win the roll, and I think this is very important here. The Men-at-Arms are able to pull back and turn around, and that means the hunting pack have to go through the front, right? My opponent activating his Hunters, actually, and going to shoot point blank at the Bastion unit, except I don't have Bastion because, you know, it's a draw event, so these guys actually pummel them, do a whole bunch of damage to the Gilded Legion there, just whipping off a stand or two. Over here, Fireball at the hunting pack, just to reduce their effectiveness. We don't really want them charging them head on and getting 1 billion hits and scrubbing me that way. So a little Fireball to, you know, help reduce the problems going on there. Over here, we have the Braves charging the Gilded Legion, of course. As predicted, the Braves lose their Inspired, and they're up against Defense 3, Resolve, effectively 5 here. So nothing much is done. Love, 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 love this photograph, though. Look at the eyes there of our boy, what's his name, from the campaign. Fun little model there with a little mace, and I hope you guys all seen my little stop motion video from the campaign video. That was a fun one. Over here, so my opponent, having thought about this and talked to me about the possibilities, has decided to move back with his Apex Predator, and I kind of respect this play because if he just simply falls for the trap and just charges the Steel Legion, kills 2 stands, and then loses the Apex Predator, it's going to mean that I score for the rest of the game with the minimum like Steel Legion guys here, and the Knights are going to be free to go after everything else on the board. So by delaying things for a while here, it deepens the problem of me being behind on points, because my opponent is ahead by exactly 2 objective points right now from the veterans having got onto the zone a lot earlier than me. So this at least gives him a chance to just buy a bit of time, etc. So what I'm doing here is I'm double marching the Steel Legion up to that zone. Note that I can only get 2 bases into contact with it. And even if I had 3, the Apex Predator is worth 3. So the points won't be scored from the zone, and if he wins the roll next turn, he can charge directly with the Apex and do impact hits, and obviously his normal clash, which could indeed wipe out the Steel Legion 100%. Right, through here we have the veterans just holding firm and not really doing too much. Over here we've got the Hunter Cadre shooting at the Braves, plinking off a few points into close combat, and then the hunting pack marching on through here, not able to accomplish much more given that they're down to 1 stand. They were broken essentially by the damage taken by the Mage, so they're rallying and moving forward so that they can charge next turn. The Thunder Riders, unfortunately, they're thundering along through the flank here, but not quite making it to the objective zone, sadly, so unable to pick up the bonus points, which is unfortunate. Over here we have the Crimson Tower Knights doing a double march. They're getting into position where if they activate before the Apex Predator, they can charge through and wipe him out, and then the Steel Legion are free to just camp the zone for the rest of the game. I can then turn around with the Crimson Tower and charge something else and play it that way. We also have the Ashen Dawn double marching past this objective, ready to take on the veterans for the rest of the game. I still have my Supremacy ability on hand, so in the next turn, that's when I'll probably be wanting to use it, just so they have hardened against the Chiefs Cleave 2. So there it is, a bit of an overview. We've got the veterans about to face the Ashen Dawn, and luckily for me, the Tontorr is behind the veterans. If I'm fighting the Tontorr and the veterans with the Ashen Dawn, I will definitely not win that combat, 100%. But more of a zoomed out view. So on the left, let's just go through it. Let's get out the pen. And let's explain what's going on here. So over here, if he charges my Steel Legion, the hope is that I'll survive with maybe 1 stand, and then this big bus here can just dive in and kill it. If I win the roll, then obviously I can go after him. If the Steel Legion are wiped out, I've still got this scoring unit to go after the zone over there, through that line there, and then this zone here I can still take with the pikes. I've just got to move into the center with the Knights later in the game. On the right-hand side here, his Thunder Riders are going to be camping this, the Tontorr is going to be camping this, so we're both going to get 4 points per turn, and it's just going to come down to what happens in the combats involving my Ashen Dawn and, of course, my Crimson Tower Knights later. So let's have a look at that. Gilded Legion going first, just because I can really get away with everything else surviving. Like the Apex Predator, if it charges the Gilded Legion, as you saw, I've got a backup scoring in it, so I can afford to lose them. And with Oblivious, I might not even lose the entire crop, right? But Gilded Legion, I kind of do want to have Bastion there because the Predator's continuing to shoot at me. And what I can do, if I go back a step here, is that if the Gilded Legion kill these 2 stands of Braves without inspiring, which is very likely, I can then charge the Hunters, which will stop them from shooting at all. Alright, so another zoomed out view, and then let's dive into it. So my opponent does go for the Apex Predator play initially. He charges straight in here, does a bunch of impact hits. He does a massive clash, tearing through them, and really doing a lot of damage, but sadly for him, he leaves the command stand alive on 1 or 2 wounds. So that's pretty much going to be a problem now, because what this means is that the Crimson Tower Knights, which you can see on the right-hand side of the photo here, will charge him and kill him. In the next turn, the Steel Legion will obviously rally and score for the rest of the game on that zone, and the Hunter Cadre will be free to turn around and shoot at the Tontorr, for example. So this is a good outcome for me here. Over here, we've got another good outcome because the Gilded Legion destroy the Braves without inspiring, and then they charge the Hunters. We do have Bastion up at this point, so in close combat, the Hunters are unlikely to do much damage against this Bastion unit. And even though he can chant for war and get cleave, etc., I've got Armor of Dominion, so that will shut that down. Over here, we have the veterans against the Ashen Dawn, and with the hardened supremacy up from the Priory Commander, he's not able to do enough damage here to kill an entire stand, so that is just a big lockup. the little dinos against the men-at-arms. Obviously, the men-at-arms able to do with one single stand of dinosaurs from the front, as you'd expect. And then the Tontorr just repositioning a little bit to take that zone. Unfortunately, he sort of played himself into a spot where he can't really impact the game very much, which is not what you want. During turn 3, my opponent saw that he didn't have his Braves on the board yet, so he used his discretionary pick to go, I'll bring on the Braves automatically. But I feel like a better choice there would have been to bring on the Tontorr on turn 3 automatically, because it's your biggest, strongest piece. You want to march it directly towards a zone and just get a good, solid couple of rounds of combat out of it. And then you can score late game with the Braves. Would have been a better way to do that, in my opinion. Over here, the Thunder Riders moving to the edge of the zone here. They do have an opportunity to charge the men-at-arms later, but that does mean moving off the objective and losing points, etc. So unfortunately, it's going to mean that the Mage can just plink at them with fire darts for the rest of the game. Over here, the Chief and the Ashen Dawn continuing to wail away. We'll see a lot of photos of this because this is a long-winded combat. The Crimson Tower Knights gallantly and violently charging the Apex Predator and hunting it down and killing it, as would expect. I mean, you've got 20 impact hits at Clash 4, Brutal 2, and Terrifying 1, and that's not even including the Priory Commander, who does another 4 at Clash 5. So there are very few things that can survive this kind of charge, and the Apex Predator is not one of them, so away it goes. And we can move on. So they're sitting here. They do get to, they in fact get to reform after doing that, because, you know, they didn't actually need to do a clash action. So there you have it. Hunter Cadre moving around, just turning around, shooting into the combat with the veterans now. So they've got a new target. Going on to turn 6, I believe it is. We're going to go Order of the Ashen Dawn first, because we just want to get some damage into the veterans before they start chanting, and then everything else can come after that, basically. So, opponent sitting there having a deep think about how to get himself out of the mess. It is a bit problematic because he's got the Tontorr, which can't really afford to leave the zone, and the Thunder Riders can't really afford to leave the zone, otherwise it's going to fall behind on points. And I've got the two zones to the left here with the Steel Legion, one stand left, able to do the job, and the Hunter Cadre can take this one, or the Pikes can do it, but these two large units can, of course, move around to kill this objective, net 3 points, and then come after the Tontorr in the center. So it's pretty much game at this point. We've got more combat between the veterans and the Ashen Dawn, of course, very slow going one. The Gilded Legion against the Pikes, the Gilded Legion against the Hunters, able to shred them, as you can probably imagine. And then, of course, we have the Crimson Tower Knights coming in from the flank. Obviously, the Hunters not able to survive that. Few things could. But a very satisfying charge. But don't they look cool, though? The green highlights on those Hunters looking excellent. And then the Chief continuing to pummel away at the Ashen Dawn, reducing them to a couple of stands eventually. The Mage able to fire a few fire darts at the Triceratops group, the Thunder Riders in the background there. Very slowly whittling them down, and of course, once she's had enough turns of doing that and the Thunder Riders eventually die, then that will be it, because he can't score any more points from that zone. So, in fact, I'm actually moving forward and tempting him to charge me, because then he just comes off the zone straight away. Tontorr turning around in case the Gilded Legion are further off, in case the Crimson Tower Knights come after him. And the Hunter Cadre continuing to shoot at the veterans, Steel Legion continuing to score freely with their 1 wound left, or whatever they have, 3 wounds left. The Gilded Legion can reform now and turn around, and if they get into the flank of the Thunder Riders, the flank of the veterans, that's when we can pretty much call it for them. So this being around about turn 6 or turn 7, the Mage first and Crimson Tower Knights last, and that's sort of the overview of the battlefield. He's really only got the 3 regiments left, Tontorr, Veterans, and Thunder Riders, so that's pretty much game. Just a few more photos here of the outcome, and of course the beautiful colours, facing off against the Thunder Riders here with the Men-at-Arms, and the Veterans against the last remaining stand of Ashen Dawn. They're nearly there. Just fighting to the last breath, of course, before the Hunter Cadre dip in with a few more crossbow bolts. And then, of course, the Pikes just marching directly in here to face off against the remaining stands of veterans, of which there are maybe, 2, 3? So the Crimson Tower Knights, of course. Crimson Tower Knights aren't really needed at this point, but they can charge and clash the objective, which used to be around here. So that nets me 3 points and puts me in the lead to take the game, basically. So that's where it worked out in the end. You've got the Tontorr veterans, Thunder Riders. He did have a go at the objective, of course. He can't actually do more than 1 damage to it unless they're heavies, which they aren't. So we've got the Men-at-Arms cleaning up the last Thunder Rider here, and that's pretty much game. So that was a fun one. We've got another game coming up this Thursday. I'll be playing against Dwegum. And really looking forward to the new update for 100 Kingdoms. We'll see what they have for it. But most of all, just quite keen to take some more lovely photographs of these Conquest miniatures. And Hayden just finishing his Quattle now. I will hopefully get hold of that to take a few photos of it for Tabletop Simulator. And also going to be doing a video about how to play Tabletop Simulator to replace my last tutorial just because a few things have changed. So do watch out for that one. But as always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little bat rep for Conquest Last Argument. And see you in the next one.